Hey folks, welcome to IGA Tech Dive. I'm Jim Montgomery, the Governance Practice Lead with TriVir, an OpenText partner specializing in advisory and implementation services in the identity and access management realm. Today in the world of identity governance and administration, we will talk about terms and transfers. This is how to get IG to process employment events so your business can react to changes quickly. Let's get started and look at the business goal. As a security professional, or as someone working in compliance or audit, you would use termination and transfer handling in IG so that you can remove access that's no longer needed, either immediately or with a user access review. I like to think of reviews as falling into two categories. The first is time-based. In other words, reviews that you do periodically, say once a year or every quarter. These are usually the catch-all for your processes that cover granting and removing access. You check at the end of the year to remove items that were missed in your process. The second category is event-based. This is where you want to react to something, usually an employment event change like moving to a new department or leaving a company. These reviews can happen anytime, but are much smaller scope. They only cover one individual's rights, usually. Let's look at how you'd implement this. In my environment, I'm using a identity manager identity with changes driver. So I'm collecting changes that happen in my identity vault. This means that after my polling cycle happens, I'm getting changes very quickly into IG. Then I have two data policies that apply. These are working to handle terms and transfers separately. So for a termination, the data policy detects when the employee's status changes to terminated. When a user matches that criteria, the remediation will fire. And in this case, the remediation is to run a micro certification on that user's access. Note this button right here to run remediations immediately when this is detected. The reviewer in the review definition is the supervisor, since they'll need to decide if other employees need similar rights and access after this user has been terminated once we detect it. Note that there are a few things being dynamically figured out when the termination happens from IG's perspective. Who was termed, what access they had, who's the supervisor to review it. We'll terminate a user in a minute and then come back to see the review that happens. The other scenario is transfer between departments or title change. If you have a mature IGA program, you might just use business roles to handle removing and granting access of rights, and we'll see that in another video. But let's say with a title change, you also want to kick off a review. Instead of reacting to a static value of terminated, we'll just look for any changes to title. This kicks off a transfer review, which has a little bit longer duration, and we'll allow the reviewer to forward items to other authorized reviewers if that person's not sure. Let's term and transfer a user, and then we'll come back. So I'm going to crank open iManager. First user we're going to look for is this one. We are going to grant them a new employee status of terminated. This would happen through an HR system change normally. I'll apply that. So that person's been terminated. Sorry, Aggie. Next user we're going to look at is Simon Carr. Simon is getting a title change. That was the wrong choice. Simon is now president. Again, these changes would normally happen through an HR system. And then we'll come back in a moment to see how the system has kicked off reviews as a result of those changes. Hey, welcome back. So we have terminated and transferred a user. I can show you in my identity collector, we have some change events. So we had detected right here the modify occurred, and then moments later in the next polling cycle, my title change had happened. So we've pulled those into IG relatively quickly. Something I had to do is run the policy detection. Normally this happens on a schedule, so you would want to coordinate this with how quickly data is getting into your IDM system. I ran detection on these two policy roles that we have, and it kicked off remediation. If I look at my reviews, you can see that I've got 2 micro-certifications in place. What I'm going to do is log in as my manager account. So this is kind of what the user interface would look like for this particular reviewer. They can see they have 2 things to do. We're going to look at the termination first. I can see the account that's been terminated. Obviously here I'd want to remove that account from the system. In this case, let's add the application column so I can see which system this is from. It's their IDV account. And also they're part of 2 groups in IDV. So I'd want to remove these. I may want to choose to kick off some separate requests for users that are replacing this person. Similarly, with the transfer review, I get an idea of the accounts that this user has. And this would be from the standpoint of a new manager. Does this person still need this access or not? And I get to make a choice as their supervisor if they're going to continue to get that. All right, let's summarize. To wrap up, we looked at terms and transfer handling so that you can react to employment events in your environment and secure access as soon as you know there's a termination or a transfer. That's all for now. Thanks for joining me. If you have questions, you can post them in the OpenText community forum or reach out to me at jmontgomery@trivir.com. Thanks.